Human history has been massively documented over thousands of years. We know what the ancient Romans ate at their banquets, the exact techniques the Egyptians used to build the pyramids, and how Spartan warriors forged their weapons. Yet, there is a natural biological event, occurring monthly for half the world's population, that is almost entirely absent from the pages of history. That event is the menstrual cycle. Because history has largely been written by men, the most intimate experiences of women have often been overlooked or shrouded in countless layers of taboos, prejudices, and even fear. Today, we have every convenience at our disposal: a wide variety of sanitary pads, handy menstrual cups, period underwear, and painkillers. But imagine, hundreds or thousands of years ago, without any modern technology or amenities, what did our grandmothers and ancestors do to cope with their monthly time of the month? Let's turn back the clock to explore the boundless creativity, extraordinary endurance, and the hidden corners of ancient women's lives. First, we need to clarify a crucial biological fact. Prehistoric women did not experience nearly as many menstrual cycles as modern women do. While a woman today goes through an average of about 450 cycles in her lifetime, female hunter-gatherers experienced only around 160 cycles, or perhaps even far fewer. Why such a massive difference? Scientists point to four main reasons. First, puberty began much later due to a harsh diet and scarce resources. Second, they were pregnant almost continuously throughout their reproductive years. Third, the breastfeeding period lasted for 2 to 3 years per child, and this exclusive nursing suppressed ovulation. Finally, the average life expectancy at the time was quite short, with many not surviving past middle age. When their periods did arrive, they had no fabrics or refined tools. Many anthropologists believe that early women practiced free bleeding, allowing menstrual blood to naturally absorb into their animal skin clothing. However, human ingenuity didn't stop there. Mother Nature was humanity's first supermarket. They began using dried moss, specifically sphagnum moss, known for its extreme absorbency and natural antibacterial properties, combined with soft grasses, large broad leaves, or fluffy animal fur to create the most primitive sanitary pads. Leaving the prehistoric caves behind, we step into the brilliant civilization of ancient Egypt. Here, class division wasn't just evident in tombs or jewelry, it dictated exactly how a woman handled her menstrual cycle. For queens and women of the nobility, soft linen was the material of choice. Linen in those days was hand-woven with incredible skill, so expensive and precious that it was often used as currency. Wealthy women would cut linen into small strips, folding them to make pads or rolling them tightly to act as an early form of a tampon. After use, these linen strips would be taken to the banks of the Nile by handmaids, washed thoroughly, and dried in the sun to be reused. In contrast, common women could not afford such luxury. They turned to another symbol of Egypt, papyrus. This plant, primarily used to make paper, could be soaked in water until it was extremely soft, then shredded into fibers to create highly absorbent pads. Fascinatingly, ancient Egyptian medicine had a rather open and scientific perspective on reproductive health. In the famous Ebers Papyrus medical scroll, dating back to around 1550 BC, researchers found detailed records of treatments for amenorrhea, heavy bleeding, and herbal remedies for menstrual cramps. This proves that women in this era received genuine medical care rather than being treated merely as a bad omen, as was common in many later cultures. Crossing the Mediterranean Sea, we enter the world of ancient Greece and Rome. Here, Hippocrates, the father of Western medicine, introduced humorism. He believed that the human body contained various fluids that needed to be kept in perfect balance. Menstruation, through his lens, wasn't evil. It was a natural mechanism for the female body to purge excess blood, helping to cool down and regulate the body's temperature. To manage the flow, Greek women invented one of the earliest prototypes of the modern tampon. It might sound a bit daunting, but they used small, smoothly sanded pieces of wood, tightly wrapping them in soft lint or sheep's wool before inserting them into the body. These wooden tampons represented a massive leap in convenience and mobility for women of that time. However, this was also the era when absurd prejudices about menstruation began to sprout and take deep root in the human mind. The Roman scholar Pliny the Elder left behind some truly astonishing claims in his encyclopedia, stating, "If a menstruating woman simply walks by, crops will instantly wither, good wine will turn sour, mirrors will dim, bees in their hives will die, and even hail, whirlwinds, and lightning can be driven away." These baseless beliefs sowed the seeds of a stigma that would last for centuries. Shifting our gaze to the East, where modesty and discretion were highly prioritized, ancient Chinese women invented the menstrual belt, an incredibly clever and eco-friendly invention. This belt was essentially a long, tapered cloth pouch, sewn from silk for aristocratic ladies or rough cotton for commoners. The genius lay in the core of the belt. They would stuff the pouch with fine wood ash, clean sand, or dried grass and moss. When the core reached maximum absorbency, they simply unstitched the pouch and discarded the old ash or sand. The cloth cover was then washed thoroughly with soapberry, dried under the blazing sun for sterilization, restuffed with fresh ash, and reused. However, every step, from washing to drying, had to be done in absolute secrecy. In feudal Eastern societies, menstrual blood was often considered dirty, and it was strictly forbidden to leave these belts out in the open courtyard or where men could see them. In Japan, women had a more elegant method. They used washi paper, a traditional paper famous for its toughness, excellent absorbency, and extreme softness. Japanese women would roll or fold the paper to use as a pad. But because paper couldn't hold liquid as long as an ash-stuffed belt, they had to change it constantly, averaging 10 to 12 times a day. This required ancient Japanese women to carry a large stash of washi paper, carefully hidden within the thick layers of their kimonos. Crossing the ocean to the indigenous tribes of the Americas and Africa, we find a completely contrasting and beautiful perspective. Instead of viewing menstruation as an impurity or a disease to be hidden, many indigenous cultures honored it as an incredibly sacred time. Physically, they utilized everything nature offered: fluffy tufts of buffalo hair, soft pieces of animal hide, or cedar bark stripped into thin, lightweight fibers for absorption. But the most radiant highlight of these cultures was the concept of the moon lodge or menstrual hut. Contrary to the modern assumption that a menstrual hut was a place to imprison those deemed unclean, for many Native American tribes like the Cherokee or Navajo, this was a space of absolute rest. When their periods arrived, women were exempt from all heavy labor, such as farming, foraging, or cooking. Men would take over the cooking and bring food to the entrance of the lodge. Women retreated to the moon lodge to talk, brush each other's hair, weave, pass down knowledge to young girls, and meditate. They believed that during these days a woman possessed her most powerful energy and intuition. Their dreams while sleeping in the moon lodge were considered messages from the divine, capable of bringing prophecies to guide the entire tribe. The historical picture, however, wasn't always so bright. Returning to Europe during the Middle Ages, this was perhaps the darkest and most oppressive period for women's experiences. Heavily dominated by strict religious dogmas, menstruation was branded the curse of Eve. It was viewed as eternal punishment for the original sin of eating the forbidden fruit. The physical pain of menstruation was seen as something women simply had to endure. Any attempt to use herbs for pain relief was frowned upon by the church and could even lead to accusations of heresy or witchcraft. Even more uncomfortably, women of this era rarely wore underwear as we know it today. To manage their time of the month, they tore up leftover fabric, old blankets, and worn-out clothes into rags. The English slang term "on the rag," referring to a woman's period, originates directly from this impoverished context. They would tuck these old rags between their legs or sew them onto a belt tied around their waist, keeping them hidden beneath heavy, floor-length, voluminous dresses. Dark-colored dresses, like deep red, brown, or black, were their ultimate lifesavers, as they perfectly concealed any stains or unwanted leaks. To mask the scent, a terrifying obsession at a time when full-body bathing was exceptionally rare, noble women always carried small pomanders filled with lavender, cloves, and nutmeg, rubbing them onto their clothes daily. Everything only truly turned a new page when the Industrial Revolution exploded, particularly during the events of World War I. At that time, frontline nurses accidentally discovered that a type of bandage made from cellucotton, originally used to absorb blood from soldiers' wounds, worked perfectly for their own periods. From that historic discovery, the modern feminine hygiene industry was born, officially liberating billions of women worldwide from the exhausting and tedious task of washing bloodied rags. Looking back at history, from the use of dried moss in the Stone Age, Egyptian papyrus, and Chinese ash-stuffed belts, to the sacred moon lodges and the rags of the Middle Ages, the history of the menstrual cycle is the most powerful testament to women's endurance, resilience, and extraordinary adaptability. They faced a completely natural biological phenomenon amidst extreme material scarcity, surrounded by absurd prejudices, and silenced by a fearful society. Today, when we talk about menstruation, we no longer have to hide or whisper using evasive words. Modern women have scientific knowledge, supportive technology, and the right to be proud of and cherish their own bodies. Understanding how ancient women survived those days isn't just about filling in a forgotten piece of history. On a deeper level, it is about appreciating the freedom, healthcare, and wonderful conveniences that we are so incredibly lucky to have in the world today.